interesting. The cemetery was interesting. How did I feel about the cemetery?
I feel master cemetery night party.
Nói to.
I felt it was interesting. Or I thought.
Felt nên nó đang chia tất cả các động từ mình đang chia với quá khứ nhé.
Đó.
Was it boring or was it interesting?
Interesting.
Nào trả lời
It
là câu.
was interesting. Of course, it was interesting.
Nhưng không ấy dừng lại một cái.
What was interesting?
What was interesting?
The cemetery.
The cemetery. The cemetery
Thế là
was
keyword xong bắt đầu câu hỏi, bắt đầu mình trả lời cả một câu nhé.
When was the cemetery interesting?
November 1st. Today. Cemetery is interesting in on the day of the dead, November 1st.
Ok, tạm với một thế.
It was interesting on the day of the dead.
November 1st. Ok. Nói to nhé.
Okay,
Nói to
the
tại vì nó
atmosphere
đây mình đang nói cái này là phải giọng nó clear ra thì bắt đầu nếu mình nói quá nhỏ nó sẽ không ấy nhé. Không rõ.
was like a party. Was the atmosphere very sad?
Now.
No, the atmosphere was not sad.
Nào trả lời là câu.
The atmosphere was
The atmosphere
like a party.
was not sad.
The
It was like
atmosphere
a party
very
nhé.
happy.
Nói to đi.
Was the atmosphere sad or happy?
The atmosphere happy.
The atmosphere was happy đúng không? Đây was happy. Yeah.
Was happy.
The atmosphere was happy. The atmosphere was like a party. What was like a party?
The atmosphere like party.
Rồi, the atmosphere in the cemetery was like a party đúng không?
Party.
The atmosphere in the cemetery was like a party.
Was like a party.
Was like a party.
Where was the atmosphere like a party?
Atmosphere in cemetery like party.
The atmosphere in the cemetery was like a party, right?
In the cemetery. Right? The cemetery. The atmosphere was like a party in the cemetery. Was the atmosphere like a party at my house?
No. Atmosphere.
No.
Bấm bên đây bắt đầu dừng bao giờ trả lời xong rồi bắt đầu mình là bấm để tay. Bao giờ trả lời xong bắt đầu mình chuyển sang câu khác. Để tay đây.
No, the atmosphere like party in house.
Oh, not at my house. The atmosphere was like a party in the cemetery. The atmosphere was not like a party in my house. So the atmosphere was like a party. There were people everywhere. Families were sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors. Where were the families sitting?
The family sitting around the graves.
Around the graves. Right? They were sitting around the graves.
The family was sitting around the graves.
Who was sitting around the graves?
The family sitting around the graves.
The families. Right? The families were sitting around the graves. Were they sitting around the trees?
Keyword.
No. They are sitting around the graves.
Đúng rồi, they were sitting around the graves, đúng không?
The graves.
No, they weren't sitting around the trees. They were sitting around the graves. So, where were they sitting?
They sitting around the grave. The graves.
Keyword.
Around
Sau
the
bắt đầu trả lời cả câu.
graves.
Keyword sẽ trả lời cả câu.
À.
Nhớ hai bước.
Families were sitting around the graves.
Tại vì là như này này, cái lúc mà ví dụ như nó hỏi là where were you sitting around, thì em nói là the family were sitting around the graves, thì em trả lời câu đấy. Nhưng nếu mà cái người mà nghe mỗi cái câu trả lời ấy, thì không hiểu là người ta hỏi cái câu đấy là em cung cấp cái thông tin ai hay là ở đâu.
Right.
Ví dụ như nhá, ví dụ như họ ngồi ở đâu, thì em trả lời là họ ngồi ở nghĩa trang, được chưa? Em trả lời là ở nghĩa trang, nhưng ý thầy muốn nói là phải trả lời một keyword trước, là nghĩa trang trước, sau bắt đầu mới là cả câu. Tại vì nếu mà không có câu này, thì biết đâu người ta lại hỏi là ví dụ đây là Lam chẳng hạn, ví dụ hỏi là Lam ngồi đâu, thì biết đâu cái câu hỏi người ta lại nói là ai ngồi nghĩa trang, Nam ngồi nghĩa trang, thì người ta không biết là cái ý sau như này. Và đến lúc cái âm và cái ngữ điệu của em ấy cứ bằng này, nên thầy không biết là em đang trả lời nó focus vào đâu, nó focus vào cái địa điểm này hay là focus vào ông Nam này. Em hiểu không? Thế nên là trả lời keyword trước. Em để ý nè, nó hỏi là where was they sitting around, thì nó bảo là cemetery, of course they were sitting around the cemetery. Nó sẽ nhấn mạnh vào cái từ cemetery. Hoặc là ví dụ như who was sitting around the graves, the families. Yes, of course the family was sitting around the graves. Đấy, người ta nhấn mạnh vào cái từ the family. Có nghĩa là nó sẽ nhấn mạnh cái này. Nó rất quan trọng trong cái việc là khi mà đặt câu hỏi nó lại mang cái tính chất nó cứ bằng nói, nó cứ lừ cái thông tin, nó không biết là ông nào muốn nhấn mạnh cái gì. Đấy, thấy chưa?
Their dead ancestors. Were they sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors?
Yes. Yes, they sitting around the graves.
They were sitting around the graves, đúng không?
Yes, they were sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors. Were they sitting around the graves of their friends?
No. They was sitting around the graves. The graves and family.
Cái câu này back lại đi, làm sao nào, back lại một chút. 5 giây nữa. Ok. 5 giây đi.
Sisters?
Không còn cái này, không còn
They
nhìn
were
nhé.
sitting around
Mình
the
vẽ cái này nữa,
graves
mình nhìn vào còn nói
of
gì,
their dead ancestors.
đúng không?
Were they sitting around the graves of their friends? No, not really. They were sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors. Who was sitting around the graves?
The family.
The family.
The family was sitting around the graves.
That's right.
Để tay lên
Families
trên
were
đây,
sitting
để tay lên
around
cả
the
đây,
graves.
không phải đưa lên đưa xuống.
Whose graves were they sitting around?
Ancestor.
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 Yeah. The family's ancestor, đúng không? Ok Ok, nếu con này không trả lời được cả câu thì mình trả lời là mình chỉ là cứu vớt thôi. Mình sẽ cố gắng từng bước một chứ không phải là cố gắng một bước một. Mình đợi đầu tiên mình sẽ làm cả full cả câu luôn. Okay, tiếp tục.
Whose graves were they sitting around?
The ancestor, đúng không?
Yes, their dead ancestors. Their ancestors. Their ancestors' graves. They were sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors. Were they sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors or the graves of their friends?
Keyword.
They sitting around the graves of the day.
Nào, bách đại câu hỏi đang muốn nói gì đây?
Their dead ancestors or
Bách đại.
the grave ancestors. They were sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors. Were they sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors or the graves of their friends?
They were sitting around their dead at their graves.
Nào, keyword là cái gì đây? Nào, người ta hỏi là were they sitting around the graves of their ancestor or were they sitting around the graves of their friend?
And ancestor.
Đúng rồi, ancestor là keyword đúng không?
Right.
Thì mình trả lời là they were sitting around the graves of their ancestor, đúng không?
Ancestors, right? They were sitting around the graves
Ancestor.
of their dead ancestors. They cleaned the graves and added fresh flowers. Okay. Who cleaned the graves?
The family cleaned the graves.
That's right, the families. What did they add?
Fresh flower. They add fresh flower.
They added fresh flower, đúng không?
They added fresh flowers. Did they add food?
No. They add fresh flower.
No, they didn't add food. Did they add money? No, they didn't add money. They added fresh flowers. What did they clean?
The graves. They clean the graves.
They cleaned the graves. Whose graves did they clean?
Ancestor.
Whose ancestor? Whose
Whose.
ancestor?
Whose ancestor?
The family's ancestor, right? So whose grave did they clean? Whose grave did they clean?
Ancestor.
The family's ancestor, đúng không? The family's ancestor. Nó hỏi là đó là tổ tiên họ đang làm dọn dẹp cái phần mộ của tổ tiên của ai nhỉ? Đấy thì trong cái trào đấy thì mình gọi là the family's
Their
ancestor.
ancestors, right? They cleaned their ancestors' graves. Where did they add flowers?
The graves. They add fresh flower in graves.
Where? Oh, they added flowers to the graves.
To the graves.
That's right. They cleaned the graves and added fresh flowers. Very good. I walked through the cemetery and admired the beauty of all the colorful flowers. Where did I walk?
To the cemetery. I walked to the cemetery.
I walked through the cemetery.
I walked through the cemetery. Did I walk through the park?
No. No, I walked to the cemetery.
Nhớ một cái điều là đây là đây là cái ông đang kể lại một câu chuyện nhé, kể một he told a story on that already happened. Yeah.
Này.
Thì bây giờ vấn đề là chúng ta phải, khi mà chúng ta kể, người ta hỏi bao giờ người ta gọi là did hoặc là was, nghĩa là tất cả những cái mình khi mà mình trả lời mình sẽ cố gắng là ok, ban đầu những bước đầu thì chúng ta sẽ làm là trả lời có thể là bằng tất cả những gì chúng ta đã nhớ, nhưng hãy để ý là ví dụ như người ta nói là I was sitting around their graves maybe chẳng hạn, thì cái từ was, hoặc là người ta hỏi là did they clean the graves, thì người ta hỏi là với ở thời quá khứ thì người ta là yes I cleaned. Yeah, yes I cleaned the graves. Yeah. Để nhớ lưu ý là hãy chú ý cái động từ nhé. Ok, bây giờ bước đầu có thể là nó hơi vất một chút. Ví dụ cái từ walked thì ban đầu em nghĩ là cái từ walked nó chỉ như thế này thôi, nhưng mà thực ra người ta đã phát âm như thế này đấy. Đấy, they walked to the cemetery. Yeah.
No, I didn't walk through the park. I walked
Đấy.
through the cemetery.
Walked.
Where did I walk?
The cemetery. I walked to the cemetery.
Cemetery.
Through the cemetery. Who walked through the cemetery?
Me. I walked to the cemetery.
Cemetery.
I did. AJ. I walked
Cemetery.
through the cemetery.
Cemetery.
Okay.
Did I walk through the cemetery or did I walk through the park?
I walked to the cemetery.
I walked through the cemetery. That's right. And I admired the beauty of all the colorful flowers. Did I admire the beauty of the trees?
Did I admire the beauty of the tree? No, I admired the beauty of colorful flower. Bây giờ người ta hỏi là Did I admire the beauty of the tree?
Beauty of the trees.
Nào, cái câu mệnh đề người ta nói là I admired the beauty of colorful flower. Sau bây giờ chấm người ta sẽ hỏi là Did I admire the beauty of the tree?
No.
So what did I admire?
Cái từ sau nữa hả? I
Admire.
the flower.
Yes, I admire the beauty of colorful flower.
No, I didn't admire the beauty of the trees.
Yeah.
Did I admire the beauty of the children?
No.
No, I didn't admire the beauty of the children.
Children.
What did I admire?
What did I admire?
I admire the beauty flower.
I admired the beauty of colorful flower.
Flowers, right? Yeah, I admired the beauty of all the colorful flowers. Who admired the beauty of all the colorful flowers?
Me admire the beauty of colorful flower.
Cái me, ví dụ như me, vậy nó hỏi là who admired the beauty of colorful flower thì sẽ là me, nhưng mà sau khi trả lời mình thì sau đó sẽ là I admired the beauty of colorful flower. Rồi tiếp tục.
Yeah, that's right. AJ, me, admired the beauty of all the colorful flowers. Where